On this episode, we're going to talk about the upcoming US elections and Christians' role in a democracy. Hello and welcome to Dirty Christianity, the show where we investigate, explore, challenge, and get down and dirty with Christianity. My name is Alex, and in case you didn't realize, with all the ads and notifications and letters and billboards and every other way under the sun to reach you, it's election season. And this election is all set to be a really big one. Early voting in my state of Georgia has already broken records for the amount of people coming in to cast their vote in an election year that is going to be historic for one reason or another. And although this particular election takes place in America, there are elections happening every year all over the world. Democracy is the most common form of government in the world today, so Christians should take our role in it very seriously. And as much as voting is an incredibly important part of a modern society, there is more going on today than just which candidate to support. Democracy is a complex and imperfect thing. Like any human institution, it has its flaws because it is filled with people who are flawed. But ultimately, it has turned out to be the least abused and one of the most stable forms of government because, at its core, democracy is a group of people all working together to decide how to run their country. But what happens when the people stop working together? I'm not gonna lie, writing the script for this episode has been really hard. I spoke with a great deal of people on both sides of the political divide, and to put it mildly, there are a lot of strong feelings and bad blood going around. People that I greatly respect believe that trying to reach the other side is pointless because their voters are brainwashed and deluded, or just stupid, or actively malicious. There is no democracy with that. There is no cooperating or compromising with people who are fundamentally, fanatically opposed to you. And I have seen far more people than I am comfortable with saying that if their side loses in November, maybe violence is the only answer. Unless we are willing to do something about it, that's where we're headed. So do we just arm ourselves, give up, and prepare for war? Or do we stand in the gap? Again, the word of the Lord came to me. Son of man, say to the land, you are a land that has not been cleansed or rained on in the day of wrath. There is a conspiracy of her prophets within her like a roaring lion tearing its prey. They devour people, take treasures and precious things, and make many widows within her. Her priests do violence to my law and profane my holy things. They do not distinguish between the holy and the common. They teach that there is no difference between the unclean and the clean. And they shut their eyes to the keeping of my Sabbaths, so that I am profaned among them. Her officials within her are like wolves, tearing their prey. They shed blood and kill people to make unjust gain. Her prophets whitewash these deeds by false visions and lying divinations. They say, this is what the sovereign Lord says, when the Lord has not spoken. The people of the land practiced extortion and commit robbery. They oppress the poor and needy and mistreat the foreigner, denying them justice. I looked for someone among them who would build up the wall and stand before me in the gap on behalf of the land, so I would not have to destroy it. But I found no one. Now, America is not the divinely ordained theocracy of Israel, so it's not God's collective judgment that will wipe us out, because our society has become its own worst enemy. We don't need a foreign power or a divine retribution to tear us apart. We're doing that to ourselves. And I don't know about you, but I'm not ready to give up on America just yet. I love this country. As someone who has grown up internationally and traveled to dozens of countries all across the world, I can genuinely say that I love this country, even though it is flawed. And one of America's greatest strengths is in our diversity, not just in a racial way or a religious or ethnic way, but also our diversity of thought, our diversity of experiences, our diversity of beliefs. Diversity is divine, and somewhere along the way, we've lost sight of that. Please, God, restore our sight. On every issue out there, from abortion to immigration, the domestic economy to foreign relations, there are experts and professionals with years of experience who disagree on the right way to do things. There are a great many schools of thought on each issue and evidence that supports or challenges most positions. The world is complicated, and even the idea of the right way to do things is a flawed understanding. There may be ways that have better results, however that's defined, or better respect human rights, or do a better job of saving money, or look better for the voting public. And often these different metrics of success can conflict with each other. So which do we prioritize? That is the fundamental question that is causing a lot of tension in our politics and reshaping how we see each other. And this is very much something that both sides struggle with. If you support abortion, it's not that you are prioritizing the health and well-being and bodily autonomy of the mother over the unborn child. For many conservatives, it's because you just want to kill babies. If you support a tougher immigration policy, it's not that you are prioritizing legal immigrants who follow the rules and value the integrity of the United States. For many liberals, it's because you're just a racist. We are so convinced of our own righteous cause that anyone who sees things differently is not just incorrect or wrong in our eyes, they're evil. We give them the motivation that makes it easiest for us to dismiss their perspective. But on every single issue, bar none, there are multiple different positions that people can take with them that are still reasonable. Yes, even the one that you're thinking about right now that is so special to you that you think is the exception. Take slavery. Especially in America with its legacy of enslavement, every single non-extremist person acknowledges that slavery was an evil thing and should be opposed. Except there are between 30 and 50 million people who are enslaved in the modern world in everything from sex work to fishing and textiles. So what do we do about that? What methodology or priorities do we focus on? Because very few people are going to advocate for military intervention or even something akin to John Brown's raid on Harper's Ferry. But does that mean that they don't care? Every single issue has different reasonable perspectives that reasonable people can hold while still disagreeing with each other. We can even agree on what the issues are, but disagree with how to address them. And that is where democracy is most successful. But if there are reasonable positions, that also means that there are unreasonable ones. I am not naive. Racism is real. Sexism is real. Discrimination and bigotry against every people group and identity are real. Extremism is real. Sometimes well-meaning people go too far, and sometimes people are just awful. And some policies and beliefs and behaviors are a poison to a democracy and should be opposed. But what we have a really bad habit of doing is lumping the reasonable positions in with the unreasonable ones, because we just don't want to acknowledge with them or deal with them. So what happens? We end up pushing a lot more people into extremism because of our own behavior. I love this graphic because it demonstrates this perfectly. When we respond to opposition by shouting it down and demonizing the other side, we're not proving them wrong. We're often just radicalizing them more. It's like the Game of Thrones quote, "When you tear out a man's tongue, you are not proving him a liar. You're only telling the world that you fear what he might say." If we are unwilling to engage with the reasonable arguments, then we're going to have to deal with a lot more of the unreasonable ones. And the truth of the matter is that America isn't near as divided as we seem. There was a really interesting study I read that argued that something as simple as how we draw our maps can influence how divided we think the country is. Take a look at this map. You've got red states and blue states. That's it. California is a blue stronghold, Texas is a red one. The people in those states are just hopeless, right? Except, even in the most one-sided state, the dominant party has barely over 50% of the population. Here's a list that shows the political breakdown of each state. Vermont, the most liberal state in the country, is still only 57% Democrat. Feel free to pause on your state and see how it's broken up. And this is just political party affiliation. It doesn't take into account that there are socially liberal and fiscally conservative people, moderates of both parties, left-leaning conservatives and right-leaning liberals, lifelong Republicans who support abortion, and diehard liberals who also are big fans of the Second Amendment and gun rights. But how would we know that? Because we don't talk to anyone anymore, especially not if one of them are them. And because we so rarely talk to anyone outside of our own echo chambers, we have lost the ability to appreciate other viewpoints that aren't our own. Let us examine our ways and test them, and let us return to the Lord. I believe that I am right. You do too, probably. My viewpoint is shaped by the information I gather, the experiences that I have had, and the priorities that I focus on, as are yours. Now, maybe I gather better information. My sources are more factually correct. My understanding of things is more closely aligned with reality. I am, for all intents and purposes, right. But am I 100% right? Am I so perfect in my understanding that I account for all possibilities and reach an undeniably perfect solution to the issue? Probably not. Which means I miss something. Maybe the people who disagree with me have a point. That doesn't mean that they are correct overall or that they're more right than I am, but they can bring something valuable to the conversation. This is what an appreciation for the diversity of thought gets us, but this requires some self-reflection. What did I misunderstand? Where are my blind spots? Did I go too far? Not far enough? Or if I am still convinced that I am absolutely correct, why are people not on my side? Am I coming across as obnoxious? Am I not communicating well? Are they seeing something different, some different evidence than what I saw? Maybe somebody on the other side is manipulating them. But if that's the case, then the problem is with that individual or organization, not the people being misled. No matter how you look at it, our hatred of the people on the other side is misplaced. Either they are being manipulated by somebody else, in which case they are the victims, or they can contribute something to the conversation and our society is better for their existence. You don't have to like them to value their input. You don't have to like them to love them. But our hatred towards people from the other side is not from God. Not by might, nor by power, but by my Spirit, says the Lord Almighty. It is very tempting to vote for the candidate of our side, whoever our side is. We want to be on top. We want power. They had their chance. It's our turn. They are too dangerous. We can't let them win. We have to be in charge. But that is the politics of the world. It's power politics. We follow Jesus not through power, but through God's Spirit. As Christians, our primary citizenship belongs to God, and as such, our vote should recognize that. Our vote should go to somebody who more closely resembles godliness. After all, Jesus had a chance to make a deal with the devil for power, and he chose godliness. So what is godliness? What does God want from a leader and a Christian? Zechariah 7:9-10 says, "This is what the Lord Almighty said, administer true justice, show mercy and compassion to one another. Do not oppress the widow or the fatherless, the foreigner or the poor. Do not plot evil against each other." Galatians 5:22-23. "But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such things there is no law." Philippians 2:3, "Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourself." James 3:17-18, But the wisdom that comes from heaven is first of all pure, then peace-loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy and good fruit, impartial and sincere. Peacemakers who sow in peace reap a harvest of righteousness. Think about the candidates in this election, including the non-presidential ones, and whichever election in the future you find yourself in. Are they just? Are they merciful, compassionate, honest? Do they take care of the least of these? Do they manifest the fruits of the Spirit? Are they humble? Are they peacemakers? Especially in a democracy, being a peacemaker between the different sides is a big deal. Do they try to unite people or divide them? Do they call other people within their own country enemies? Do they scapegoat and demonize people? How do they treat foreigners? There are many godly traits that the Bible lists, but especially for our leaders, the ones that the Bible repeatedly focuses on are wisdom, justice, and mercy. Now take a look at the chief complaints of these two candidates. Harris's critiques are largely around the economy not doing well, people not believing that she is a capable leader, and people not liking the Democratic Party policies and platforms. Trump's critiques are largely around him being an extremist who bullies and demonizes people, lies to and manipulates his followers, his selfishness and ambition is being a threat to our democracy, and whose own administration has largely abandoned him and is warning people about him, or they've done jail time due to corruption during his presidency. I feel a lot of sympathy for my Republican brothers and sisters in this election because I know more than a few who are lifelong, passionate conservatives and cannot bring themselves to support Trump because he is the opposite of everything their Christian beliefs tell them is godly. Where do they belong in modern politics? What do Christians do who are struggling with these difficult choices? Well, whatever country you are in, whatever election you are in, if someone tries to convince you that to be a good Christian, you have to vote for one specific candidate, they are wrong. Or that no true Christian could ever vote for them, they are incorrect. Different people prioritize different things, and that is okay. Even the Bible does, depending on the situation. And no candidate is perfect. Each one in this election and beyond represents a range of opinions and beliefs, some of which are more closely aligned with biblical teaching and others that aren't. But our Christian journey starts by understanding that the kingdom of God is bigger than any one person or country. And following God should be our primary focus, not achieving political power. So what does following God look like? As I hope I've showed you with this episode, Christians have a responsibility in a democracy that is far beyond simply who to vote for. We are called to be peacemakers between sides, to be the glue that helps hold people together and to provide a place for discussion, disagreement, and cooperation. The left has some good ideas for our country, as does the right. The best path forward falls somewhere in between those two positions and even some others that aren't well represented right now. And as Christians, we can help provide a framework of integrity, trust, and openness that will help our society reconcile and relearn how to appreciate people from the other side, and to self-reflect on where our own deficiencies lie. We can stand in the gap and declare that our country is worth fighting for, not with violence or oppression or misinformation or storming the Capitol, but with love. Because ultimately, one side is going to win. So what should Christians do? Well, good old-fashioned prayer is always a good place to start, and then act on our prayers with love. Love our enemies, love our allies, love misguided people, love obnoxious people, love people who we believe are enabling harm. Love is how Jesus overcame the world. Love is what makes us more than conquerors. Love is what helps us to cooperate with people who disagree with us. Love is what inoculates us against extremist and violent rhetoric. Love makes us prisoners of hope. Love draws us together. Love is how we stitch our country back together. And love is how we learn to value the diversity of this country and every country in the world. And if we don't have love, then we have nothing. But thank God that Jesus has already overcome the world, which means he has enough love for all of us. Thanks for watching. Thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to like and subscribe and share and do all of those social media things. The more you interact, the more people I reach. I also am setting up a Patreon account, so if you see my videos and go, man, I just want to give that guy some money so that he can keep making these great videos, then go check out my Patreon page so I can keep doing this. Thank you so much.